Welcome to Daily English Stories. Every story hides a world. Some inspire, some haunt, some stay forever. Chapter 1. Signs of Doubt. Once upon a time, in a quiet little town, there lived a young woman named Emily. She was bright, kind-hearted, and always ready to help anyone in need. Emily had been dating Jack for 3 years, and in her eyes, their relationship was strong and full of love. They had built a collection of cherished memories together, from romantic weekend trips to cozy nights spent watching their favorite movies. Her best friend, Sarah, had been by her side since childhood. The two of them were inseparable, sharing every joy, every tear, and every secret. To Emily, Sarah wasn't just a friend. She was family. Between Jack and Sarah, Emily felt surrounded by trust, loyalty, and warmth. But as the months went by, Emily began to notice subtle changes. Jack, who once hung on her every word, now seemed distracted. He spent more time staring at his phone than looking into her eyes. His warm conversations turned into short, vague replies. When Emily asked if everything was all right, he brushed off her concerns, saying work had been demanding lately. Emily wanted to believe him. She tried to silence the quiet voice in her head that whispered something was wrong. Yet that voice only grew louder. A few weeks later, Emily decided to surprise Jack with a birthday party. She planned every detail with care, inviting all their friends, Sarah included. The evening seemed to be going perfectly. The guests laughed, the decorations sparkled, and Jack appeared genuinely happy. But in between the smiles and laughter, Emily's eyes caught moments she couldn't ignore. Sarah and Jack standing close, whispering to each other, sharing glances that felt too private to be innocent. It was just a flicker, a passing moment, but it planted a seed of doubt deep in Emily's heart. That night, as she lay in bed, replaying the evening, Emily felt an unfamiliar heaviness. She didn't want to imagine the worst, but something inside her told her that the life she thought she knew might be changing. Chapter 2. The Breaking Point. The days after Jack's birthday party felt different, as if an invisible fog had settled over Emily's life. The laughter from that night, the music, the well wishes from friends, all of it was overshadowed by those fleeting glances between Jack and Sarah. She told herself she was imagining it, that she was reading too much into harmless moments, but the doubt had taken root. It clung to her thoughts during quiet moments and kept her awake at night. Jack's behavior only seemed to confirm her unease. He was still constantly on his phone, smiling at messages he wouldn't share. When she asked, his answers were vague. Just work, or nothing important. Sometimes he'd change the subject altogether. Emily began noticing the subtle ways he avoided eye contact when she pressed for details. One gray afternoon, Emily was seated by the window at her favorite cafe, absently stirring her coffee, when she spotted her friend Lisa approaching. Lisa hesitated for a moment before sliding into the seat across from her. "I wasn't sure if I should tell you this," Lisa began, her voice low. "But I saw Jack and Sarah together the other day." Emily froze. "Together? Like, what do you mean?" "They were at Cafe Marlowe, sitting really close. They were holding hands, Emily, laughing. I didn't want to believe it myself, but it didn't look like just friends." Emily's first instinct was to reject it outright. Jack and Sarah, the people she trusted most. Number Lisa had to be mistaken, but the conviction in her friend's voice and the unease that had been building inside her made it impossible to dismiss. She forced a smile, thanked Lisa for telling her, and changed the subject. Yet inside, her stomach churned. That night, Emily replayed the conversation over and over. She remembered Jack's distant gaze, the half-hidden smiles between him and Sarah at the party. The picture was becoming clearer, and she hated what it revealed. A few days later, she decided she couldn't live with the uncertainty anymore. If there was a truth to be found, she would find it. When Jack told her he had to work late one evening, Emily's pulse quickened. She waited until he left, then followed him at a safe distance. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, the city lights blurring past as she tailed his car through winding streets. Jack eventually pulled into the parking lot of a small, warmly lit restaurant. Emily parked a few spaces away, her heart pounding so hard it almost drowned out her thoughts. She told herself she could just peek through the window, that maybe she'd find him alone, and she could go home relieved. But when she stepped close enough to see through the glass, the air seemed to leave her lungs. There, at a corner table, was Sarah. Her hair caught the light as she laughed at something Jack said. His hand reached across the table to hold hers, and the gesture was intimate, soft, familiar, like something shared between two people who belonged to each other. Emily stood there for a moment, the world narrowing to that single, shattering image. She felt heat rush to her face, her chest tightening until it almost hurt. Without thinking, she pushed the door open. The little bell above it chimed sharply, and the sound seemed to slice through their laughter. Jack's smile faded instantly. Sarah's hand slipped from his. Both stared at her, as if they had seen a ghost. "How could you do this to me?" Emily's voice trembled, but her eyes held steady. The room felt unbearably quiet, the hum of conversations from other tables fading into the background. Jack opened his mouth, but no words came. Sarah looked down at the table, unable to meet Emily's gaze. That silence, their inability to even deny it, was the confirmation she didn't want, but now had. Emily's hands shook, but she straightened her shoulders. "I trusted you, both of you, and this is what you do behind my back." Her voice cracked, and before either of them could respond, she turned and walked away. The cool night air hit her like a wave, but it didn't wash away the sting. She walked to her car, each step feeling heavier than the last, tears threatening to blur her vision. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt most was knowing she had lost not just a partner, but the friend she had loved like a sister. And as she drove away, the lights of the restaurant fading in her rearview mirror, Emily knew nothing about her life would ever be the same again. Chapter 3: Healing and New Beginnings. The days that followed were some of the hardest Emily had ever known. The image of Jack and Sarah at that restaurant replayed in her mind like a cruel film she couldn't turn off. She would wake up in the middle of the night, her heart racing, the betrayal fresh all over again. The quiet of her small apartment felt heavier now, every corner filled with memories she wished she could erase. At first, she kept to herself. She avoided the places she used to go with them, ignored messages from mutual friends, and let the world outside blur into the background. It would have been easy to let the pain consume her. But somewhere inside, a small spark pushed her forward. She told herself that if she couldn't control what had happened, she could at least control what came next. Emily began pouring her emotions into painting. She set up a small corner in her living room with an easel, brushes, and canvases, letting colors speak where words failed. Some days her paintings were bold and bright, a defiance against the darkness she felt. Other days they were softer, like quiet sighs of acceptance. Slowly, the act of creating gave her back a sense of control. When she wasn't painting, she walked. Long, meandering walks through nearby parks became her therapy. She would listen to the crunch of leaves under her shoes, feel the wind against her skin, and watch sunlight filter through branches. Nature didn't demand explanations. It just existed, steady and beautiful, and somehow that steadiness began to seep into her own heart. Her circle of friends shifted. The people who had truly cared for her showed up without her asking, dropping by with tea, sending her small notes, or simply sitting with her in silence. She realized how much she had overlooked these quiet, loyal connections while pouring so much of herself into Jack and Sarah. Now, she nurtured those friendships, and they became the scaffolding that helped her rebuild. Meanwhile, she heard whispers that Jack and Sarah's relationship wasn't as perfect as they might have hoped. The guilt, the secrecy, the way their love had been born out of betrayal, it weighed on them. Within months, they were no longer together. Emily didn't feel satisfaction when she learned this, only a distant sense of closure. Their choices had taken them down a path she no longer had to walk. Time passed, and Emily found herself laughing more often. She planned weekend trips with friends, tried new recipes in her kitchen, and even took a pottery class just for fun. Every small joy was like a brick, building a stronger version of herself. She had learned to trust her instincts, to protect her boundaries, and, most importantly, to value her own worth above anyone else's validation. It was during a local charity event that she met David. She had signed up to help organize supplies for a fundraiser, and David was one of the volunteers. He was warm without being overbearing, attentive without pushing for more than she was ready to give. They started talking during a coffee break and discovered a shared love for art, books, and hiking. Their friendship grew naturally. David never made her feel like she had to prove herself, and he listened, really listened, when she spoke. Over time, that friendship turned into something deeper, but it was different from what she had experienced before. There was no constant doubt or need to decode hidden meanings. With David, everything felt simple, steady, and safe. One crisp autumn evening, as they walked through the park, Emily realized she no longer felt the sharp sting of betrayal when she thought of Jack and Sarah. The memories were still there, but they no longer held power over her. She had survived, healed, and found something better, not just in love, but in herself. Emily's journey had begun with trust and ended with wisdom. She understood now that true love and friendship could never exist without honesty and loyalty. And as she watched the leaves drift gently to the ground, hand in hand with David, she knew that her heart was not just mended. It was stronger than it had ever been.